Welcome to A-Bomb to Zzzax. With me, Colin Holt. And my friends, Dan Snellgrove and Jamie Firth. Here they come! Welcome to A-Bomb to Zzzax, my favorite Marvel character, where me and my friends go through all the Marvel characters from A to Z, discovering the remarkable world of the Marvel Comics universe. It is a remarkable world. Now, it's spooky time. It's Halloween still. So I thought, let's do a Monster Mash special. We're going to bash through 5 characters. We're going to mash and bash through 5 characters if we can. I'm in a Premier Inn right now. And joining me once again is my dear friend Nick Krik / Nick Krik. Hello, Nick.
Hello. And hello to you.
Hello, Halloween to you. Is that what you said? Hello. It was the Halloween weekend here. I'm on tour doing my show, Colin. It's called Colin. I'm on tour right now, and I'm in another Premier Inn. I feel like I now live in Premier Inns. Don't do a tour, kids. Whatever you do, there's no... The problem is I'm doing it all on my own, and I'm just going from venue to venue. I'm currently in Swansea. I don't want to sound like a sort of person who's mean about Swansea, but it was quite depressing walking through the city centre, coming to the Premier Inn, going up the lift and sitting in my room, and then going off to do the show all on my own. Oh, Nick, it was off. The show was fine. One of the things is the rooms often don't really translate to good shows. So this was just like a big empty white space, as in it was really white. I felt like I was in Frozen. It had like a star curtain behind me, but all the audience were kind of lit. Like, I think because the lights were bouncing back at them, and sometimes when you do these shows, it's great. So in Bristol, it was really fun. It was like an old bank vault they turned into a theatre. It just kind of felt quite like a happening, very Bristol-y. Whereas here, I felt like I was performing to like family members, like sort of halfway through. I was just like, I hope you're enjoying this. I don't know. Like they were laughing and stuff, but it was just felt, yeah, I could see why Richard Pryor apparently never used to drink before he went on tour, and obviously ended up setting himself on fire through drugs. I don't think I'm quite there, but I could see how you could be. There you go, Nick. That's me. How's your life right now?
Yeah, I'm good. I had, I think last time we spoke, I was in Brussels, and now I'm back to work, so that's less fun.
Oh. That's not as fun, is it? But I'm looking into your bedroom, which I've never looked into. A bedroom. I'm looking into your bedroom. A lovely collection of books and DVDs and graphic novels there. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. What a sight. So this is a merry Marvel monster marathon. We're going to talk about, we don't have a huge amount of time, but that's okay because most of these characters already exist. So it's not really a case of... we don't really have to explain who they are because you basically know, apart from one, but even they are, you kind of do get it pretty quick, to be honest. So Marvel in the 70s started doing loads of monster comics, which I never knew about particularly. Did you, Nick? I sort of remember as a kid seeing like the Tomb of Dracula stuff, but I didn't really get it. It actually felt quite British, I thought.
Yeah, I know what you mean, actually. I think we talked about this in one of the other ones. It was when they were doing all the essentials where they reprinted like 25 issues in black and white for a tenner. They started Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf.
Oh, yes. I felt very ashamed buying them from the proper comics dealers who were annoyed at me for not buying Black Hole by Charles Burns, etc. Yeah.
But yeah, they did them around then, and I really kind of got into them in that point and just really enjoyed them.
I think there was one called The Haunted Tank. Do you remember that? Was that a DC one?
That's a DC one. Yeah.
Okay. And it's just it's a haunted tank. Oh no, it's the haunted tank. But I think it's haunted by, first of all, I think it's set in the Civil War, which isn't like a pure war. I mean, there's only really one, which is World War II, which is because we're fighting the Nazis who were so evil. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to be sympathetic to them. Whereas like most wars are just a really dreadful, argument that's led to lots of young men killing each other and civilians and so on. And the haunted tank was possessed, I believe, by the ghost of a Republican, what was it? No, sorry, Confederate general.
I don't really remember it. I'll be honest. I know
no, it wasn't set in the Civil War because it's a tank, obviously. So it's set in World War II. But I think it had the ghost of a Civil War general was possessing it and helping them fight the Nazis. Okay, fair enough. I take it back. It was in the one good war, not good war, but one righteous war. So anyway, Marvel, to give you a very potted history, weren't allowed to do anything to do with monsters or anything spooky or too scary for a long time, because in the 50s, I think I've talked about this before, but there was loads of really creepy, scary, brilliant horror comics, which arguably went too far, but it created a huge backlash, similar to the sort of Republican backlash against books we're seeing in the States at the minute. And there was a whole movement against comics. Comics were literally burnt on bonfires, stuff like this. So the Marvel comics and the DC comics people swore to never create such evil things again. And then 20 years passed and they were like, oh, can we do it now? And somehow it just, culture had changed. It became relaxed. So what was interesting, so they came out with quite a few. So there's Tomb of Dracula, Frankenstein's Monster, and one called Werewolf by Night. They're the three we're going to look at first. Interestingly, all based on old characters, obviously. Like it's not, they're not like things like, I guess at the time it was more like Halloween that come out, as in John Carpenter.
Yeah, these were like flashbacks at that time, because you're right, 70s was getting more into kind of slasher horror. That's starting to Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and these are harking back.
And Stephen King was around then, was he?
Yeah, and these are harking back like Universal Monsters and Hammer Horror, which was like 20 to 40 years before.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hammer Horror was still happening then. Maybe that was like late 60s, was it? And then, but I don't know how popular I mean, I guess they were popular, but they weren't like, slasher was where it at this point, I think. But yeah, these are all, which I presume were the writers, were middle-aged men, presumably. So that was the stuff they loved as a kid. So that's what they wanted to do. So even though horror was allowed, we're still not talking, proper, what we think of as, gory, gore fests. It was Dracula, Wolfman, and Frankenstein's Monster. And also because they are in the Marvel universe is the weird thing. So they still have to kind of have a heroic edge to them, or some sort of or superpower feel to them, which I think is quite interesting. So let's start with, I mean, it's always, I was thinking about this, it's always in threes, isn't it, with these sort of things? I remember as a kid, I was always into threes. It was always Dracula, then Frankenstein, then Wolfman. I don't know, did you have that?
I think that's the hierarchy, isn't it?
That is the hierarchy. I always used to remember thinking the hierarchy of bands when I was a kid was Beatles, Rolling Stones, The Kinks. It's more of a spectrum than that, obviously. And I never really liked the Beatles. Do you know what? I'm going to break with tradition. We're going to start with Frankenstein.
Oh,
to hell with it. Let's do it. Okay, so Frankenstein. Frankenstein's Monster, according to fandom.com, which is where I get my stats, is 147 kilograms. Whoa, that's heavy. That's like nearly two of me. He's 8 foot tall, massive guy, brown eyes and hair, grey skin. And what amused me, it says it was created by Gene Colin, comics writer, and Mary Shelley.
Yeah.
Which is true. Technically, apparently, it first appeared in Marvel Tales 96 in 1950. I don't know what that relates to. I think basically Frankenstein's Monster would pop up every now and again as a ghost or as like they time travel and Frankenstein's Monster would be there. But as an official character in the Marvel Universe, he doesn't really appear until Frankenstein's Monster number 13, 1974. Why not till then? Because the early ones apparently, I don't know if you've read them, but they are just a adaptation of the old book.
Yeah.
So Mary Shelley's classic book. So we meet the Frankenstein monster. It says on the cover, he runs amok. No man is safe from the undying fiend. So he is a villain. What I love is in the corner, they've got a little circle with a kind of spooky image of him by a tree.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a cool, I'd like that as a badge. Would you, Nick? Or a t-shirt?
Yeah, a t-shirt would be nice. Yeah,
a t-shirt would be nice, wouldn't it? Or anything. I'd put it on my curtains if I could. Don't think I'll be allowed. Don't think they'll let me. When I say they, I mean my wife. So this story's called All Pieces of Fear. That's a strange title. Should we just talk through the story? What happens quickly in this one? He's so Frankenstein's monster. We jump straight in and he's just there. And he's in a is he in, oh, I thought he was on a train, but he's in a plane. He's in a cargo hold. He's managed to get himself into a cargo hold. And apparently there is a little, you know, when you have the asterisks, apparently he was in LA during Giant-Sized Werewolf #2. It's hard to work out where Frankenstein was. It was also quite hard to find all these monster characters' first appearance because a lot of them are in black and white magazines that came out that were more like adult magazines.
Yeah, this was the kind
of. They're not on Marvel Unlimited.
The magazines were their way of getting around. Well, like you talked about, the Comics Code Authority that came in the 50s that they had to abide by, so they couldn't show blood, anything like that. So they started doing these
Epic Illustrated.
Yeah, they started doing these A4 magazines, and they didn't have the Comics Code on them, so that they could sort of get around it, and they could be a little bit more adult in those ones.
And they're more like specialist. What's that? Sorry.
But obviously, they're not on the Marvel Unlimited app because they're more adult.
Yeah, although there's stuff on the Marvel Unlimited app which is much worse, like the Punisher and stuff, which is much more violent. But there you go. Yeah, they had that lurid kind of, you know, painted covers. Frank Franzetta, is that the guy? The fantasy. Like they had that kind of feel to them.
Heavy metal sort of vibe.
As with all comics, not with all comics, as with all sort of horror of the past and of the present days, there's a lot of boobs and stuff, isn't there? There's a lot of semi-naked ladies. It's all a bit like that. I'm reading a great book, slight diversion, called My Favorite Thing is Monsters. Have you read this?
Oh, I haven't read that one, but I've heard of it.
Oh, Nick, get yourself a copy on eBay today. It's wonderful. It's a fully painted, not painted, sorry. It's fully like penciled. It looks all penciled and colored in pencils. It's done like it's a kid's exercise book. But it's a murder case that this kid's trying to solve. And, but it's also their autobiography growing up in the 60s like this. And she talks a lot about boobs and monsters. And how it was essentially saying, like, if you have boobs, you're going to get killed by a monster. It's kind of if you have big boobs. So anyway, we don't lean too much into that in these ones. But so anyway, Frankenstein's monster is somehow ended up in the cargo hold of a plane. He escapes. He comes out. He gets woke up by some men who he beats up. But he's going to kill them. But then he realizes he doesn't. He's not going to, because he says he utterly despises their violent reaction. So why should he react to their violence? So there's sympathy to this guy already, isn't there? Of all the monsters, he's definitely the most heroic in the past, in the old things. And they're sort of keeping with that tradition.
Yeah, although the next line is, well, now that their eyes are sealed in oblivion, I basically have beaten them senseless anyway, so I might as well stop.
Yes. So he wants to take them near to death, but not actually kill them. He's like Batman, basically. Yeah. He has a code he will not cross. He doesn't want to kill. Good on you, Frankenstein. Or Frankenstein. We're just going to call him Frankenstein. I can't be bought. I know the whole Frankenstein's monster thing. We're just going to call him Frankenstein for now. So the plot revolves around this other scientist who isn't Victor Frankenstein. Now I've mucked up my own thing my own rule then by saying, so not the scientist Frankenstein, but he is a scientist who just lives, in a tranquil brownstone in the West 70s, filled with hate, which I thought hate was quite a strong word because it's actually just a man and his wife having an argument.
Yeah.
Filled with hate. It's pretty extreme. So this woman is, I like the way she's drawn. She looks like a real person, which is quite rare because, they all the faces are quite sort of look like actual people as opposed to just generic comic people. Apart from Frankenstein, weirdly, who I think looks like a big rag doll.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's that sort of squarish face.
Yeah, square, but also he's proper white. They've just coloured him like alabaster.
Yeah.
And I guess they're trying to move as far away from the traditional Boris Karloff look whilst keeping it. But he just looks boring. He's just got kind of like Oasis hair, is it? Or a sort of raggedy Beatles cut.
Yeah, or sort of 90s Britpop band generic ragged hairdo.
Yeah, he looks like he's in menswear or something.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think about menswear did suits. I'm going to say Shed 7, who apparently having
Ian
a
Brown,
revival.
a little bit Ian Brown.
A little Ian Brown. He does look like Ian Brown. He's a big patchwork doll of Ian Brown. But his face, they haven't drawn. He doesn't look like a real face. It's bizarre. And he's just wearing a sort of, what is it? It's like a gilet made of hair.
It's like a hairy gilet.
A hairy gilet. The classic Frankenstein look. The hairy gilet. Anyway, so this in the 70s, wherever that is, this man and this woman are having an argument. And it's probably an argument that's never happened between a man and a woman or anyone, I think. She's angry that he's working all the time, to be fair. I guess that's happened a lot. But he's built in his laboratory a way of creating life. And his laboratory's just in the house.
Yeah.
Just in the house.
Yeah.
But he's got he's got all the DNA of like alligators, lions, tigers, and a big tube. And he's just sort of, it's very confusing as to what he's trying to do, but he's trying to create life like the original Victor Frankenstein, I guess. And he seems to have a microwave with a rat in it. Look at this, Janice. Look at it. I created this. Look at it, Janice.
Yeah, his proud achievement is a sort of lumpy tumor-ridden rat in a microwave. I don't think that's the thing you want to show off.
It looks disgusting. I mean, I understand why she's angry. I wouldn't say it's pure, but she comes across. I don't like the depiction of the wife. I like the artwork, as I say. No, it's not Mike Plug, is it? Oh, we should say that in a minute. Sorry, but she's
Val Myrick, I think, on this one.
Val Myrick. I quite like the artwork generally. It feels a bit like Warriors. The film Warriors. It has that. Anyway, we'll get. But she's depicted as a nag. Do you know what I mean? As a real sort of like hen-pecking. Is that the word? Hen-pecking sort of nag who's just on at him all the time. And it's like he's turned your house into a laboratory and he's breeding he's creating tumor-ridden rats, as you say. It's fair enough.
Not even that. He's lost his job because he spends all his time building tumor-ridden rats. And
this is an ongoing problem.
He's like, I've lost my job because of people like you who can't see my genius. What to create lumpy rats? Like, she's right. He's got a family. He needs a job.
She's sort of right, but at the same time, surely, this is an ongoing Marvel problem. If you could build a robotic scorpion suit, why would you be bothering battling the police or whatever? But in the same way, if he can do this, surely he can get a job. Surely he can make money out of this in some way. I don't know. But anyway, these characters are completely random. We don't need to talk about them at all. But Frankenstein, then we see Frankenstein. I love this line. A nearby neighborhood where filth and poverty slink hand in hand with ... vandalism. The whole writing style is really annoying, but also brilliant. Like, I could see how it could really put people off. But in all of these horror comics, it's all done in a lot of narration.
Yeah, I quite like that, though. It's like you're saying, it's this sort of slightly overly florid, sort of tense, trying to create tension through these sort of weird descriptions in the narration.
Yeah, I guess trying to be like Mary Shelley.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just going to read this one bit because it's so insane. Enter a shadow-swirled room, a realm of gloom and dark despair, and in a world where stark terror and bleak tragedy form the very breath of life, enter a dread domain of thoughts, a monster's thoughts. And then it goes on and on and on to talk about his brain and how it works and what's in his brain. But it's so all over the shop, doesn't make any sense. And really, it's just saying he sat in a plane. Like, what I love is when it comes down to it, what it actually is. There's one in the Dracula one where it goes on about, hear this sound, a sound that breaks the night. Like, and it's just saying there's a car coming. All it's saying is there's a car coming. So anyway, Frankenstein has amusingly broken into, the vandalism is Frankenstein breaking into a bookshop. And of course, what book has he gone to steal? Frankenstein. By Mary Shelley. He's gone into, he's broken in, he can't speak in this either, which I think they changed later. And in the original books, he could just speak, couldn't he?
Yeah.
This is like a misnomer, if that's the right. False.
Well, it's something that came out of the 30s Universal films where he was the sort of mute.
Yeah. Although we could say, obviously, friend and... you know, my favorite bit is where in Bride of Frankenstein, where he goes, you go, live, we stay, die.
Yeah.
Love that bit. Beautiful moment. It makes me cry every time. Anyway, Frankenstein has stolen a copy of the book Frankenstein, which is the weird thing with the Marvel Universe is that Dracula and Frankenstein exist as books and as real characters.
Yeah, it's like so they're a fictional character within a fictional universe that they exist in as fictional characters as well.
Yes. Which I guess if you did a Dracula story now, it's quite hard to do, to avoid the fact that everyone knows what vampires are and that Dracula exists. But anyway, he gets into, well, the reason why I say the Warriors is because he bumps into this gang who all look quite, they look quite sort of gentle and sensitive souls, really, considering they're a tough gang. They look quite sort of, quite innocent looking. Anyway, there's one of them there gets punched because he's sticking up for Frankenstein. So they all attack. They try and mug Frankenstein. That's a mistake for a start, isn't it? They see this massive, really freaky bloke and go, let's mug him. Which, I don't know.
He's 8 foot. He's 8 foot tall. Why would you be that?
He's wearing a gilet of hair. Oh, gilet of hair. I think it's a real mistake to not have him talk, actually. Doesn't give him much character. Anyway, what I do love is one of the gang defends Frankenstein. He gets punched for it. So then Frankenstein turns around and swats, which is the sound effect. He properly smashes the guy who the guy who punched the other guy. Although weirdly they get the colouring wrong and it's really confusing because they've given both the same colouring. Anyway, he whacks him and it's such a good image of this guy being punched by Frankenstein because it's like his head's thrown back. His whole body seems to have twisted round and his right arm is like, it looks like he's just been smashed.
Yeah.
Just obliterated. Oh, great bit of artwork there. Anyway, eventually, it turns out that boy, the boy who helped Frankenstein, is the son of the scientist. They go back to the house where the hate-filled, nagging wife has just to somehow get him back, has just poured all the DNA into the tube thing of all the different monsters. This will teach him. What? And so when they get there, the poor scientist, who's a bit of a prick as well, let's be honest, he's been killed by this creature who is a mix of all the DNA, which presumably now Frankenstein must fight. There we go. A lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked this one. I liked the bit as well where Frankenstein's got the book of Frankenstein, shows it to the kid who's like, oh, you can't be him. He shows him the book and he's like, oh, I guess you can be. Oh, okay.
Yes, it is really nice. It's like 3 of his heads. It's like a thinking sequence. Oh, no, I don't believe it. You can't be. Can you? Yeah, okay, you are.
Yeah.
I mean, he did see him just swat that guy, to be fair. So he's dead. But then in a superhuman universe, I mean, this is one of the things in the Marvel Universe now that the horror stuff is starting to happen in the MCU. I mean, I like it, but it also feels a bit, it's just like, okay, so essentially in this universe, anything can happen. Everything is true, which is fun, isn't it? But as a kid, I used to find that a little bit annoying. I think that's why I avoided these things. Because it's weird when they're like seriously, because I know he appeared in X-Men and stuff in the early Cyclops days and Iceman and stuff. And it always felt a bit, what, they're fighting Frankenstein. Okay.
Yeah.
How does that? It's jumping the shark somewhat, isn't it? But I guess you have to jump the shark and then come all the way back.
Yeah. They did like a Godzilla comic in the 70s as well, where he fights like Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, and that feels really odd. Like,
now it's just like anything goes, isn't it? Really, it's just like everything is in anything. But I guess we're in a very postmodern age. Well, let's. I tell you what. We'll talk briefly about him. So, what do we think about him, Frankenstein? Generally, what do we think of this interpretation? Do you have any other thoughts on it, Nick?
The difficulty is, like you said, he doesn't speak, so he's not really much of a character. He's just this big thing in his hairy gilet. You don't really get much.
No.
From him. They try and do the kind of description of his thoughts, like you said, but it's a bit over the top.
As it goes on, he does evolve a little bit. There is quite a good X-Men story where he runs a circus. Have you seen that one? It's in Wolverine and the X-Men. But you don't realize it's him. He looks like a fairly normal bloke. And then you go, oh, fuck, it's Frankenstein. But it's actually like he's become malevolent and twisted, and I quite like that version of him, but it doesn't really relate to Frankenstein. Okay, well, there we go. That's Frankie. Now we're on to Dracula. Let's go to the Tomb of Dracula, issue 1 from 1972, which I did kind of adore. I mean, there's a lot of words here. It's a lot of plot and writing and a lot of unnecessary plot. But again, this has got this long explanation of what's going on. Now listen, strain to hear beneath that ageless torrent, strain to hear a less regular sound than the repetitious roar of rain, the sound of a faltering engine, the sound of a nightmare's birth. That's quite, now I read it, that's quite good, actually. I quite like that. So this is Jerry Conway and Gene Colin. In the story, I'm going to do it quick because we've spent a lot of time on Frankenstein, but essentially there's a character called Frank Drake who we meet. Frank Drake he's driving up towards Dracula's castle in Romania, but it's quite hard to tell it's Romania. It feels like it's sort of America. I guess it's like, this is very Hammer horror, isn't it? Where it's like, where are we? It's just sort of America via Europe generally.
Yeah, this is pure Hammer horror because they drive up to like the village. You've got the villagers, all speaking English.
Oh, sorry, Nick. Say that again. You froze a bit then. It's my
rubbish
Wi-Fi. Yeah, you said this is pure something.
I was saying, this is pure Hammer horror because they drive up to the little local village. You've got the sort of suspicious innkeeper. You've got the buxom wench. It's all that kind of pure
the buxom wench
Hammer style. You must
her dress draped so that her leg is just fully exposed in her face. Da-da, there's my leg. You've got all those elements, and they won't take him up to the castle, but then one man agrees to. I like also one of the characters is Meister, which I think they mean the Burgermeister, because there was always the Burgermeister, wasn't there, in old Universal horror and Hammer horror. And they did this gag in Frankenweenie the other day where there's a guy called Mr. Burgermeister. But I don't know whether that is a gag or whether they just never got the burger, because the Burgermeister was like the mayor, I think, wasn't he? Yeah. This is the most I've ever said Burgermeister. I've always found the word Burgermeister very funny. So they get to Transylvania, and there's a bit of, talking about scary Dracula's castle. That we have Frank Drake, we have his girlfriend, what's her name? Jeannie, and then a man called Clifton Graves. And it's quite an odd situation they find themselves in that his girlfriend is Jeannie, but Clifton Graves used to be her boyfriend. And he says, I'm sorry, Jeannie, ever since we left London, Clifton's been acting strange. And she goes, we both know why, don't we, Frankie? It's all my fault for coming along. I used to be his girl, and he can't take my being with you. I quite like the uncomfortable nature of the characters. They're not friends. Clifton hates him. and you've got this weird triangle. I do like it, but I also think it feels quite, I don't know how much it's meant to just be uncomfortable and how much it's just a very quite uncomfortable sexist way of doing female characters, in that she is kind of their property. Or what, do you know what I mean? And the rivalry is between two men who both love her.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like that.
A little bit like that. But I do like that it makes the whole thing, the whole comic feels quite in a horror. Like no one's happy. No one's happy. No one's like, we are the good guys. You know what I mean? They're all a bit unpleasant, and there's a lot of just no one's sort of friends particularly. I like that.
They seem to go back and forth a little bit on whether like Frank and Clifton are friends. They sort of say, oh, well, he is a good friend after all. And then Frank says something like, shut up, Clifton. I'm getting to the point where I can't stand the sound of your weaseling voice.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, if I said that to you, Nick, you probably wouldn't want to keep doing this, I imagine. I mean, you'd really have to want to, wouldn't you? So Frank, it turns out that the backstory is, we go into a bit of the backstory. Frank he's only bloody Dracula's great-great-great-grandson. Now, did Dracula have a child before he became a vampire? I don't think it's answered.
Yeah, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. They don't really say how it came about that he's Dracula's descendant, just that he is.
Yeah, he's got like a book, hasn't he? Which Clifton Graves gives it. He goes, come on, read this book. You'll love it. And I don't know whether the book is Dracula.
Yeah,
as in Bram Stoker's Dracula. But I don't think it can be, but it talks about how it's written by Dracula's grandson. Yeah. Talking about, I can't believe he's really like, I can't believe my bloody grandfather's Dracula. Oh, this is dreadful. Oh no. Oh, what am I going to do? Something a bit like that. And he killed Dracula. He staked Dracula, apparently. So Frank is Dracula's descendant. Clifton Graves. Oh, Frank, by the way, has somehow spent £1 million in 3 years, which nowadays would be fairly easy, I think. But back then, apparently, it broke all records. I don't know where he's got his money from. His dad left him a load of money. He just spent it straight away. Then he met Jeannie, who was Clifton's girlfriend, but he stole her away somehow. Or, you know, but Clifton Graves, he's a dreadful man. He goes to his friends asking for help. They won't help him. Clifton Graves says to him, but hang on, aren't you Dracula's grandson? You've got a castle. Let's go and turn the castle into a tourist place. So in this world, they know the book Dracula exists by Bram Stoker, but also they know Dracula was real. I mean, obviously Dracula was real, or Vlad the Impaler was real.
Yeah, but here he's definitely Count Dracula, who was real, but was also in the book by Bram Stoker.
Yeah. So do they know he was a vampire, or is that just they?
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's clear that he was a vampire, but there's also, I think, an element of people not believing that he actually was. So I think.
Okay. Do they think it's just like a rumor? Yeah. This actual Count Dracula existed. He was my great-grandfather. So anyway, they finally get in there, into the castle. Clifton Graves finds Dracula's body with the stake in it. It pulls the stake out, then just walks away while Dracula comes back. I don't know why he just walks away. You think he'd wait a second just to see, but he just walks off. Dracula comes to life again. So the way he looks, I think this goes, but he's got a mustache, which was... I never thought of Dracula with a mustache, you know, because Bela Lugosi didn't.
Sort of pencil thin.
Christopher Lee didn't. Yeah, but it's that David Niven type mustache. But here he's actually got kind of a goatee, I think, which I think they lose pretty quick. But he's that is in the book, isn't it? The mustache.
I think so. It's been a long while since I've read it.
The image in the book isn't as cool as they kind of make him in the films. You know, he is a bit more like just a weird old man, I think. Which I guess the Gary Oldman one, they kind of did more. Yeah. So he comes to life. He throws Clifton Graves into a sort of pit and says, "You'll be my servant now." He finds Frank and Jeannie. he tries to hypnotize Jeannie, and Frank just immediately punches her in the face and knocks her out. There's no mucking about in this.
And the punches are really hard in that panel. It's not like a slap; it's a proper punch.
Again, it's like a swat from Frankenstein. Her head's gone right back.
Yeah,
you'd think he'd start with a slap, at least. It's, snap out of it, but it's a full on. Frank Drake is a bad guy.
Yeah,
I think I'm sort of in Clifton is a better guy, even though he's meant to be the villain. Anyway, he then, which isn't not great, he then gets rid of Dracula by finding a silver compact, as in a little mirror, and then holding it up to Dracula, and Dracula flies off. He kills the poor barmaid instantly. We see a bit of the town, and there's one character who got a lovely little appearance from Les Dawson, I think. I don't know if you can see that on page 21. Classic British comedian. Again, very hammer horror. Top right corner of page 21. We've got, it appears to be Les Dawson lives in the village anyway. I'll let you find that later, Nick.
I found him now, yeah. That's exactly what you mean.
Anyway, eventually he gets in a fight with Dracula. He keeps using the silver compact, which is a dreadful weapon. I don't like that. I do like the bit where he just throws it at his head and he just bops off Dracula's head. It's like, did you think that would kill me? What are you doing? It's like, but also the silver thing, that's for werewolves. Sorry, what?
Maybe think of Austin Powers like throwing a shoe at him. It's that kind of...
It did feel a bit like that. Anyway, ultimately, the villagers all turn up, burn down the castle.
Yeah.
Frank Drake thinks he's done it. He's got rid of Dracula, but lo and behold, he turns around. Jeannie has Frankie, don't cry. I'm not dead. You see, I'm not. When you're bitten by a vampire, you don't die. You never die. Never. She has fangs. She's a vampire. She turns into a bat and sods off. So he's lost Jeannie, Frank. He's lost everything. He's lost £1 million in 3 years. Clifton Graves, his best mate, who he hates, he's thrown into a pit. And now Jeannie's a vampire. God, this went really bad, didn't it? It's a bad idea, this whole going to Dracula's castle thing. What do we think of Dracula?
Yeah, he's not in it a huge amount, is he? He's in it sort of few.
I'm afraid not.
Few scenes, but he feels like a very traditional Dracula. Like he says his own name a lot. He tells people that he's Dracula. Like, whoever strikes Dracula strikes death.
Yeah.
Sort of very traditional villain declaiming themselves as how brilliant they are,
I read further on this comic as well, and on Tomb of Dracula, and he never really becomes like a suave, trying to act normal. He's always really angry and aggressive and violent immediately as a Dracula. He's never kind of, he doesn't have the charming element at all. He's just full on, I'll kill you, mate. I'll rip your head off. It's like, but Dracula, I'm Dracula, mate. I find that nothing amuses me more than Marvel characters with Nottingham accents. The comic goes on. Have you read? I tried to read the whole thing, but I could only I'm still about 14 in, because it's Marv Wolfman takes on the writing, which I like Marv Wolfman, but it doesn't really know where to go as a comic in a way. I think it lived for 5 years or something, didn't it? It was probably 5. It lives, but it's sort of who is the protagonist, I guess, is the problem. Frank Drake eventually gets a gang, including Van Helsing's granddaughter, I think, and other characters from the books, children and grandchildren, help him. And there's a large Indian man. It's very like a James Bond, like a Sikh man, who's sort of super strong and can't speak, which is probably not a great trope.
Yeah, it does.
Very like a James Bond villain. I can't remember his name.
But
he's in the gang.
And also Blade first turns up in Tomb of Dracula.
Yes, Blade, who will come to another day. But Blade first appears in Tomb of Dracula, that's right, and immediately kind of takes over, I think, because he's immediately much better than all the other characters. He's much more exciting. Frank Drake just seems sad. He's just a sad guy.
Yeah.
But he keeps getting girlfriends as well in it who keep getting killed. He's just, stay away from this guy, seriously. But yeah, Dracula, and there's some issues where Dracula kind of goes into other dimensions where he fights demons and stuff. So they start to bring in other monsters and stuff, but it's still that problem of like the villain is the protagonist, but also not. So it never quite fixes that. After that, after the whole 90s, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, they do lean into him wearing that awful sort of red armor, Vlad the Impaler, and he has a ponytail. They lose the tash. He has white hair with a long ponytail. Does not look good. And there are a few interesting stories in terms of a bit of further reading. Again, he keeps coming back in the X-Men for some reason. The X-Men, I guess because there's so many X-Men comics, but they have a whole battle with him over a long time. Jubilee becomes a vampire for a bit.
Yeah,
very weird.
Vampire. He has a kind of... Does he turn Storm briefly into a vampire at one point?
Oh, that's a Chris Claremont one. Yeah, I don't think he actually does, but he attempts to. There is a what if where Storm does become queen of the vampires or whatever. Yeah. So they do stuff with him. I don't like where he's at now. Generally, I don't like where the monster stuff is at now. I loved the Werewolf by Night MCU thing, which we'll get to in a minute. But generally, they're all done for comedy, aren't they? Which,
yeah,
like they're all Deadpool and stuff. And I'm like, oh, must you?
Yeah.
I'd love to read a proper one where it went back to this, but with a modern sensibility. So it wasn't kind of, in the Hammer vein of being really sexist and a bit, the characters are like kind of awful, but they're meant to be good. Where it had a knowing version of this, but it went back to like, this is serious, this is horror, this is scary. But at the minute, they keep doing things like was it the Legion of Monsters? I read that one and it was so crap. And I think currently in the Marvel Universe, they've got like a Monsterverse underground where they all live, which is sort of like the Morlocks tunnels. I think it's actually the Morlocks tunnels. But it's all played for laughs, which I know, if you've got Frankenstein and the Mummy and all this stuff, yes, it's ridiculous. But I just love one where they did it properly again. But anyway.
Yeah, because these 70s ones they're not trying to be ridiculous. They're trying to be horror comics.
Yeah. And they work, I think. They are. Sorry, Nick.
I was going to say, within the limitations of what they can do as part of Marvel's universe.
But I think they're pretty unpleasant.
Mm.
They are kind of weirdly violent. Okay, so that's Dracula. Right, moving on to Werewolf by Night. Real name Jack Russell. Which apparently I did read when they did that. They didn't realize that was a gag.
Oh, really? I thought it was a weird on-the-nose pun because it just feels too much to have it does feel like it undermines it, having a strong werewolf guy called Jack Russell.
It does feel like a really weird gag, but it doesn't even work as a gag because it doesn't really make sense, does it? Because he's not a dog. What? But he... so Jack Russell is... do you remember Jack Russells from the 90s, from the 80s even? They were very popular in the 80s. They were almost like the Bully XLs of the 80s. I mean, they were in no way as dangerous as a Bully XL. But I seem to remember a lot of Jack Russells were the ones to avoid as a kid because they'd really go for you. So maybe it's right that he's called Jack Russell. But his real name is Jacob Rusoff. So his dad is dead at the start. And he is now living with his mum and his sister. It's his 18th birthday, and he's got a lovely, lovely shock orange hair, which I did like. I loved his ginger locks, and so does his mum. They're a really ginger family, but it's really the art. Mike Ploog, beautiful.
Yeah, I like it.
This I should say is Marvel Spotlight on Werewolf by Night. Marvel Spotlight #2 from 1970 something. Yes, it's Mike Ploog, and who wrote it? Jerry Conway again, was it?
Jerry Conway, I think.
He gets about old Conway, doesn't he? He gets about. So his stepdad is Philip Russell, but his real dad's name was Jacob Rusoff. So that's odd that he only had to change 4 letters to update his name. It's really weird, isn't it, this comic?
Yeah, there's an odd mix of sort of stuff going on, because it's, like you said, it's about him having his 18th birthday, discovering he's a werewolf, giving the...
Well, he starts having dreams that he's a werewolf, but is that true, that he is a werewolf?
No, I think it's...
Because I couldn't tell whether he was dreaming it, or that was him going out being a werewolf and then not being, and then remembering it as a dream.
I took it as it was actually happening and him thinking it's a dream, and then...
Okay, fine.
It is happening, because I think it's on the first page it says it's first night, and then it says second night later on in the issue.
Yes, no, you're right. I
took it that it actually was happening.
So sorry, carry on with the story.
So it's sort of it's a mixture of him having this 18th birthday party, having these dreams, finding out that he is actually a werewolf, but also there's a storyline about his stepfather being very shady with his wealthy mother, which as part of him being at the party leads to his stepfather's thuggish chauffeur interfering with his mother's car, and his mum ending up in hospital in critical condition, where she then gives his sort of true origin about his real father, which in true Marvel horror style involves another castle.
And unnecessary castle, I think, in this case. Yeah. That he's also just got a massive castle. His dad is from Serbia, I think. What did she say? Serbia? I feel like she was traveling around Europe and she met his dad. All of these comics have these sort of dad sins of the father feel to them, don't they? Yeah. But yeah, every month he'd go away for 3 days and lock himself up in a room and just doing his work. He said, I've got to do work for 3 days every month. And she was like, yeah, I just thought fair enough, until one day lightning struck the tower where he hid, and what was actually happening was he was becoming a werewolf, and he escaped and killed the village carpenter.
Yeah.
Again, they're in this weird village that could be, I mean, I suppose it's Europe, but it is very much feels like it's 300 years ago. And they find him and kill him. They find the werewolf, kill it, because they happen to have silver bullets. And it is Jacob Rusoff, Jack's dad. So anyway, sorry, yeah. So she gives him the backstory. There we go. And this makes him change into a werewolf. He gets so angry, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unclear in that bit whether it's just because it's night again or the stress of his mother's imminent death is making him.
Yeah, and getting this knowledge about his dad and stuff.
Yeah. So his mother dies, and in his werewolf form, he still has enough of himself to go out and take revenge on the sort of thuggish chauffeur who was responsible for the death.
The thuggish chauffeur is a strange character. His name is Grant, and we first see him talking to Jack's mother, and she goes, and Jack's like, oh, there goes Grant, giving my mum hell again. And it sounds like he's just constantly bullying and attacking the mum, which is weird because they've got this whole plot to try and get her money. So you think he'd try and be nice to her as opposed to... Philip Russell, the dad, is just like, oh, that's just Grant, that's just his way, which if it was modern, that would be could be a brilliant comment on everyday sexism and sort of just men. Do you know what I mean? Like, in a way, if there was this dad character whose chauffeur bullied the woman and it was just sort of like, oh, that's just the way he is, that would be quite a good comment. But I think it's just weird writing, I'm afraid. I don't think it's that clever. But Grant is insane. He's so scary and violent as this he must be sort of a master criminal. Is it not a master criminal, but like a gangster or something, presumably is the idea.
Yeah. And then you've got this sort of 4-page fight scene where he actually quite easily seems to beat up this massively strong werewolf.
Yeah. He's like the Kingpin is what made me think of. In that he's just a man, but he's just... I quite like it when that happens. I like it. I always like it Daredevil where Kingpin beats him up, but it's a bit like it's almost that feeling of like, oh, if even as a superhero, if you came across a real tough guy, they just beat the shit out of you. That's what it feels like. And I love how Grant's just like sees this werewolf. I mean, obviously he assumes it's just a man wearing a mask, and then just starts really kicking the shit out of him for ages, for like 4 pages. He's just beating the crap out of this werewolf. It's really made me laugh. It made me think a bit of that. Do you remember that Halloween prank that was on YouTube, like sort of done where this guy's walking past a bin and there's someone dressed up in a Scream costume and they jump out the bin and the guy just turns around and like punches him 5 times really fast, just like bang, 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 just like without like no thought, just immediately freaks out and just goes, it sort of made me think of that. But anyway, he's all right until he realizes it's not a mask. This is a werewolf. And then suddenly freaks out. I mean, at that point I'd go, oh, it is a werewolf. And I just beat him up.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead, he's like,
keep going.
Oh, it turns out it's not a mask. I'll just run away.
Yeah, because that's just, I can't bear it. And the wolf comes after him and kills him. I think he actually kills him, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. I quite like the panel where he kills him because it's sort of done in, you just see the shadows and the silhouette of the werewolf sort of strangling him. It's sort of implied rather
Which they did quite a lot of that. I thought the MCU version that they did as that Halloween special, they really captured a lot of that. A lot of the kind of silhouette, black and white. Great. Then the werewolf goes after Philip Russell, and it's who has turned up to give Grant his money. But then it's kind of weird because obviously Philip Russell set it up. He's the baddie. He's had his wife killed to get her insurance, whatever, inheritance. But it's sort of suggested Jack isn't sure or not. Should I attack him or... And his mum said, don't, Philip, he's a good man.
Yeah, that's the reason. The reason Jack won't kill Philip is because he promised his mum as she was dying that he wouldn't ever do anything to harm Philip. So that was his promise to his mum. So although he's discovered that Philip killed his mother, he's also promised his mother he won't harm Philip. So that's the kind of him being sort of torn at these two things is pretty much where it leaves him.
He's not, so he just does nothing. It's almost Hamlet.
Yeah, but I think that's exactly like the horror comic ending is a lot of this sort of thing where actually no one really wins. Is the sort of horror.
Yes,
a lot of these.
Oh, that's the case in all of them, isn't it? Really, there's no one. Yeah,
no one really wins in any of the horror ones. That's the difference to like the main Marvel ones. Is the main character sort of doesn't really win, doesn't necessarily lose, but doesn't really win.
Philip Russell just drives off with he's constantly got a pipe in his mouth. In every shot you see him, he just drives off through the rain and can just hear the wolf howling. It says, helpless, I looked to the moon and cried, for I realized one more thing, something that was already dissolving in the animal rage, even as the thought that held it formed. What could revenge matter? What could it ever matter to a boy? Now a man, now a wolf. What? I don't get any of that. Okay, I like Werewolf by Night, right? I like it. So first of all, I'm going to say this comic's very much saved by the artwork, which is fantastic. It's old-fashioned, but it's wonderful. It's like underground 60s. It feels so 60s. I feel like I'm watching an episode of The Monkees. The colouring, the furniture, just like they've got bubble chairs and all stuff like that. I mean, it's actually 70s, isn't it? But to me, it's 60s, so it's quite dated. But it's so fun. The look of the werewolf, I love. I love that he's not the modern American Werewolf thing where he's got a big nose or he's not like a full wolf. He is proper old school Lon Chaney Wolfman. Yeah. I love that. There's a random bit where he fights a wolf. I forgot about that, which is just weird and completely unnecessary. I don't know whether that's meant to be metaphysical in some way, but anyway, let's not worry about that. I do kind of love Werewolf by Night. I like that at one point he refers to himself as Werewolf by Night. Like the name isn't great, is it? I am Werewolf by Night. Often they just call him the werewolf in later stories.
It's got the sort of first person narration as well, so it's all narrated by him. You know.
Yes. So we get him more as a character, and also the werewolf has always been a more sympathetic character. Dracula's obviously a villain, but the werewolf is ultimately a normal man who turns into a wolf. The only thing is when he turns into a wolf, he's not really out of control. He seems to, I don't think they've quite landed how he thinks, in that he's thinking the same thoughts, but he'll just say things like, rather than say mum, he'll say, I've got to save that woman.
Yeah.
But he's not like Hulk, where it's like, woman must save or anything. You know, he's having full sentences. He just can't remember anyone's names. Seems to be the only thing that happens when he becomes a wolf.
I've been reading the early Hulks, and they struggle a lot with that with Hulk as well. He weaves back and forth between how much he does and doesn't speak or know. Sometimes he's like smarter than other times, and it seems to be kind of, they can't make up their mind a lot of the time on how that really works.
Yes. Yeah, it's quite, I mean, it is hard to write, to be fair. You've given yourself a real problem, haven't you?
Yeah.
And you can only do it with narration. I think that's why they have so much narration going on, and so much sort of what they do a lot of. In fact, I think we'll have to leave. We were going to do Elsa Bloodstone, but let's do that another day, because I think we don't have time to really give her justice. But let's briefly go to, before we do, just Werewolf by Night, I'd just like to make a mention of, have you read any of his later stuff, any later appearances?
No, not so, the series, no.
Nowadays, again, he's often lumped in with that whole sort of Howling Commandos and stuff like that, and Deadpool, and it's all a bit crap, you know, if I'm honest. But there is a great run in Marvel Comics Presents, which was my first Marvel comic that I got into when I was a sort of like 10, 11. And they do the thing of he's got the full nose and everything, but he's fighting this real baddie called Silver Dagger, who you could play, actually, Nick. He looks a bit like you. And he's a sort of man who kills werewolves, basically. But he's really dangerous. And there's also this group of sort of lost boys, but they're werewolves, you know, sort of baddie werewolves that he's also fighting. And it's fantastic. It's really good. And they do the whole first night, second night, third night thing in that. And within the storyline of it is that the wolf is completely out, you know, crazy and killing people and stuff. And then by the end, they, in a Hulk way, they've sort of accepted each other. And, you know, now I can turn into a werewolf whenever I need to. And the beast understands me, and I understand the beast and all that. But anyway, give a little shout out to that, because I think that's great. So finally, Simon Garth, the zombie. Now, it's very hard to find any Simon Garth out there at all. And this appearance isn't even technically Simon Garth, because this is before, I think, his official appearance as the zombie. But apparently this is officially him. And it's in Menace, a comic called Menace, number 5, which came out in the 50s, 1953, I believe. And it's written by Stan Lee. So this is pre-Marvel Stan Lee. And it's good. It's great. So it's only a short story of 5 short stories. So this was in the height of the pre-Comics Code stuff.
Yeah.
I love this. Again, it's written as if you're in his head. So it's all that sort of, imagine you wake up, you're dead, you're a zombie. I mean, it's much better than that. But, you know, your fetid skin covered, you hear a voice in your head, should you follow it and all that. And the story is basically just that this zombie wakes up in the swamp and he's doing the master's bidding. This man, because this is pre-Night of the Living Dead. So this is pre-zombies being like brain-eating mob type feel. This was when zombies were just dead people who've been brought alive by an evil magician. And but the magician he kind of looks like someone from Narcos. Do you know what I mean? He looks like a sort of Mexican cartel member, I think. I'm not quite sure what look they're going for.
He looked like the evil guy that turns the kids into donkeys in Pinocchio. That was what I thought he looked like.
Oh, a little bit like that. I think he's meant to be Romany, to use the proper thing, I think. But I can't tell. But I guess also he's voodoo. So it's very vague as to where we are, what's going on there. But he can basically control the zombie, and he makes him go out. What does he make him? Makes him steal a load of stuff. He goes, I want more stuff. Go and steal some stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it's hard to know how much the zombie actual thought the zombie's having, because how does he know who to steal stuff off? Like, he could just steal a load of bagels or something, or like a hat, but he knows to steal gold from a rich man. Anyway, he takes it back to the man, and then he tells him, actually, a woman I'm in love with, I want you to get her and bring her here. It's pretty grim. So he goes to the house where she is. He sees her. The zombie sees her. She doesn't see him. Then he can't do it. So he goes back to the magician and kills him. And then the final shot is the zombie sinking back into the earth, which is a beautiful image. You can see the ground sort of closing back up over his cadaver. And it says, how could he do that to his own daughter? So that was his daughter. And that was the mistake the wizard made. Should have checked which zombie I was using.
Yeah.
Love breaking a curse is a pretty tried and tested thing. But I like that it's between a dad and a daughter. I thought that was quite sweet. Having a daughter myself, I thought that's the one thing that would make you go, actually, no, even though I'm a zombie and I supposedly don't have any thoughts of my own, this is you've gone too far this time, weird wizard guy. I'm not doing it. And kills him.
Yeah.
Brilliant little story.
I absolutely love this one. And the artwork is incredible. It looks so good.
Isn't it weird that the artwork is better then? And including the Mike Ploog stuff. I mean, the Dracula artwork's a bit, and the Frankenstein's a bit shoddy in places. But it's funny, like the Mike Ploog and this one, it looks better than what you get now sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful and really creepy. So creepy. The swamp and the zombie has the way his clothes are drawn, his like ribs are sticking out and his sort of eyeless slits, and he's got no nose, and marvelous. Almost like sort of German woodcut sort of feel to it. Do you know what I mean? It's German woodcut. Germans do woodcuts particularly. Very satisfying, very satisfying. Lovely. Well, that's Simon Garth. As I say, I couldn't find. There's not really much else you could find. There is one called Marvel Zombie, singular. Is that rubbish? Have you read that one?
I think I took a quick look at it, and I think it's part of the broader set of Marvel Zombies series that they
so
did.
Wouldn't really.
So it's sort of.
part
of the main Marvel universe.
I think they did go on to change his origin a bit more and flesh it out, but I don't think there's anything. I think it's just that, really. There are reasons behind. I did read up on it, and there are, but the explanation of his backstory was just dull and uninteresting. I just want him as a zombie. I just want that. I just want him to. I'd like to see more of him, but I don't know. Again, it would be very hard to do a story, because how do you make a protagonist who literally, not only can he speak, he supposedly cannot think, which is kind of the man who we avoided, man. Right, I'm afraid I've got to go on tour, back on the road, so we better put these in some order. But that was fun going back into the Marvel universe, the Marvel Monster verse, wasn't it? Wonderful. I'd recommend them to anyone. I mean, it's not an easy ride. They're all quite tedious to read in some ways because they're so verbose, but there's a joy to them that I think is fantastic. Right, let's very quickly pop them in. So we started with Frankenstein. Oh my God, where the hell does he go?
I think quite low, because there's not much of a character to him.
I'm just going to let you decide this, unless I really argue. There's not enough of a character, is there, at this point? I mean, there are later ones, as I say, but I don't think it evolves enough. I'm just trying to find the order. Who did we put? Didn't we put someone very high last time? Oh dear, I hope I've still got the order.
We did. I can't remember who it was.
The order. Right. God, I've literally got minutes left. Okay. Is that Alicia Masters? No, I am right. Okay, so Frankenstein, I mean, above A-Bomb. No, above A-Bomb? Maybe not even above Airwalker, above a now. Above Agent Zero.
Yeah.
Below Alita, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I said you could choose and then I just did it. Okay, Dracula. And not as high as I like him to be. I don't think he's great. I don't think it's a great interpretation, I gotta say. What do you think?
He's definitely higher than Frankenstein, but he's not up there.
No. Below Abomination?
Yeah.
Okay. Below Abomination, you have Alexander Pierce, so that's where we're going into, you know. And then Werewolf by Night, Jack Russell. I think I put high above Amadeus Cho. No,
Maybe just below.
Just below. Okay. Okay. And then we've got finally the zombie.
I don't know. Having said that, there's not much character to Frankenstein. I really liked zombie.
You really? Yeah, I know. I'd put zombie.
I think he might be
werewolf.
I think he might be my abyss.
Oh, really? Should we put him above werewolf? Sod it, let's do it. Should we put him one below abyss?
Yeah.
Okay, a random. It's a bit of a wild card. We might need to come back to that one. Okay, thank you, Nick, for another wonderful episode. I've really got to run, but that was great fun. I always enjoyed chatting to you. Please come back soon. I've heard from Dan. He is still alive in Patagonia. He's at the end of the world. He sent me a photo from the end of the world. I'm not sure what that means. He's going to be back in a couple of weeks, and Jamie too. But Nick, maybe you'll be back with me next week. And also, obviously, you can come back anytime, mate. Always welcome. And thank you for helping me while the boys have been away. And that was the Marvel Monsterverse. All right, buddy. I'll catch up with you later. Cheers, pal.
Thanks. Bye.
You have been listening to A-Bomb to Zzzax, my favorite Marvel character, with me, Colin Holt, and my friends Dan Snellgrove and Jamie Firth. There they go! Please remember to support us at patreon.com/A-Bomb to Zzzax.